Oh shit, I forgot my drink.
Deja vu is usually a glitch in the Matrix. It happens when they change something. It happens when they change something. It happens when they change something. They change something.
When she's 10 feet.
It happens when they change
I use old code to make something new.
Maybe this isn't the story we think it is.
What could we be talking about here? Let's do it one more time. Try to think about the Forrest Fenn story.
Deja vu is usually a glitch in the Matrix. It happens when they change something.
When they change something.
It happens when they change something. It happens when they change something. They change something.
When she's 10 feet.
It happens when they change.
I use old code to make something new.
Maybe this isn't the story we think it is. It happens when they change something.
What's up, gang? It happens when they change something. What's been changed? That's my question. I know that a lot of you think the story we've been told so far is not real in some way, shape, or form. My question is, could you all have been right the whole time without being right? For instance, I thought the scrapbooks had nothing to do with anything. Nothing. I was right, but I was also wrong. So could that also have taken place here in the final hours of the chase? Or were there things done all throughout the chase and before the chase started that when you look back really don't make any sense? I mean, I, for one, never read the scrapbooks, JK, until afterwards. And I know most of you out there who don't like the D.B. Cooper stuff are maybe annoyed by it. I know some people are just burnt out by it. Some people are flat out annoyed by it. Some people are insulted by it. I'm not sure why, but... Alan and I aren't ready yet to get into our research because we're still going boots on the ground, and we're doing that in 9 days. So after our 9 days and we get to go boots on the ground, then I'll share some of this stuff. But I mean, I can cover some of the basics. LLCs are a big deal. I didn't think they were. They are. LLCs are a big deal. Going into the history of Forrest Fenn is a big deal. there are discrepancies. Some of those felt intentional. Now I'm getting a message from somebody that's very important to my research, so hold on. Oh my God. I don't even know how to like explain who I'm talking to right now. In the back of Ha Ha Ha, there's a discussion about a party at the Ariel Tavern every year for DB Cooper. I may be talking with her right now. Oh man, that's interesting. What's up, everybody? Hi, everybody in the chat. I didn't say hi to you. I'm waiting for now. Now things are interesting because this person is actually responding. Hold on, I gotta figure out how to word this, and I need better thinking music to figure out how to word this. Oh, how do I want to word this? Shit. See what she says to that. Oh my God, that's so interesting. I wish I could show you guys. Oh my God. Ah, interesting. Susie, K-Pro hired writers from California in 2019. What do you mean? Going to the furniture store. Bye, Ashley. What's up, Packer Jack? What's up, Carrie? What's up, Indy? What's up, Bobby Brass? Some of y'all talk. Bobby, I feel like you've talked shit about me. The shit talking about me has definitely increased tenfold, and it bothers me a little bit, but not too much. You're not what, Susie? Shit, I've already forgotten what I said. My bad. Oh, God, I better drink this Red Bull much slower because I put a little weed mocktail concoction in it. And you're not supposed to have too much of it, so. Oh, let's go, let's go. That's crazy. I hope Alan could come on so I can discuss this live with you guys. Because I don't think it would be bad to update it. I just don't want people talking to this person at all just because I don't want her, but she wants nothing to do with anything, so. Judith Perkins, check it, your dreams. On what the Yeah, Indy, edibles are a whole other fucking bag of ball of wax, bag of tricks, whatever we want to say. Yeah, this screwed me up too. I took like 2 swigs of this thinking it was whatever. And it recommends like a capful, and boy oh boy, were they right about just a capful. When people talk shit about you, you need to hire writers in California. Where'd this wet drop? Oh, I just took a shower. Maybe that's where. I'm not talking about anybody in particular. Capo told everyone she hired a writer from California to help with the documentary in 2019. Oh! Well, there you go. Yo, Ben, has Why has the shit talking increased? Because people don't like ideas they don't agree with. Like for you, for instance, I was going to have you on to talk about your solve, but then I saw you making a post again just talking mad shit about me. Why would I want to have you on when you just talk shit in other corners of the internet and then, you know what I mean? What's the point? I'm the channel that has everybody on. I've had you on, man. Why are people calling me a ding ding now? What the fuck? Did I do something silly right now? Oh, you're talking about the... I hate this delay, guys. I hate it. I hate the delay. I wish the chat was in real time. Ooh, she's typing. She's typing, guys. I saw dots. I saw dots. If she gives me the 1% chance of news that I think that I would love to have, then I'll say it right away. I don't even care. I don't even care. My guess is she won't. I'm sure you can imagine the questions I'm asking this person. Because the BS has increased. I mean, has it? Has it? Let's go back for 10 years and how much bullshit was in this chase for 10 years? Probably a lot. I gave her a series of names and her answer was not ringing any bells. I think everybody's in on it now. We're not sure. Hold on, guys. Writing back to her. Not ringing any bells. God, what an answer. Why it hasn't increased? Why? Okay, so why has it increased? Maybe increase is the wrong word. I don't know the right word, though. Oh, hold on. The right word. See, I accidentally click on... It opens up a YouTube box that I never go into it because I'm just in the Streamlab thing. Is this BS free night? Well, is it a night time right now? Or is it still daytime? BS free, it's always BS free. Listen, our opinions are not bullshit. Five Leaf having a cipher solve is not bullshit. Bullshit is the way we interact with each other and try to push our ideas on each other. A lot of that is bullshit. Or the way we scoff at others' ideas can be bullshit. I try not to do that. When I talk shit on a solve, I talk shit on a solve that's been said 1,000 times to me, and I've heard it 1,000 times, and I just don't agree with it. No chat feature on your live video. What? I see people chatting. I just got a Facebook message saying there's no live chat on my video, but I believe there is. I think that's on you, whoever sent me that. You know who you are. Because I see people chatting to me. It's weird. It's 7:15 for you? Where are you? You must be... Oh, that's right. You're in England. Just appeared. Okay, gotcha. Let's get Adam Fadi in here. I miss him. See, I know he's sick of the DB Cooper stuff, too. And that's totally fine. There's not gonna, in my opinion, there doesn't need to be DB Cooper updates. Again, when Al and I were on K-Pro show, I mean, my percentage, I think, was like 50% or something. I'm more interested in the connections with Ha Ha Ha. Now, let's pretend Forrest either copied Ha 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 from Ha 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 or wrote Ha Ha himself. Okay? And let's take out the idea that he's DB Cooper or knows DB Cooper. He just wrote ha ha ha. Isn't that important just to check out? Just to see if he did or didn't? I almost feel like now I'm getting games played with me, with this person. Either way, the reason I started the stream with that Matrix trailer was, well, just because it's a good trailer, first of all. It's brand new. Second of all, what it kind of says is kind of what through the ha 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 research, we've gone down the rabbit hole of Forrest Fenn and his past and uncovering things from his past, and now I'm getting into all the LLCs that the Fenns would have and the business entities that they had all throughout the country, and a lot of the rabbit holes stemmed from ha 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 stuff and led to something real with Fenn stuff, so some of which we can't explain yet. Either way, it certainly feels like Forrest Fenn was not who we think he was. He was somebody else. I mean, there was something else going on in Forrest Fenn's life that we don't know about. He could just be... I mean, the simplest explanation I have, take away DB stuff, is the simplest explanation I can have for what Forrest is hiding, for what Forrest is in the world, is I think he was much richer than we thought. Like, I'm talking like hundreds of millions. A 2 million treasure is a drop in the bucket. You know, that's his paper budget for the year. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of money. It feels like circulated around Forrest. Do you think DB is all that exciting anyways? It wasn't very much. No, it's not. I mean, it's exciting if it turns out that Fenn has some kind of role to play with that story. If it's just the DB Cooper story, it's exciting to maybe try to figure out what really happened with it. Yeah, that in itself is a 50-year mystery that hasn't been solved. I think it's fun. It's different than Forrest Fenn, though, if it doesn't involve Forrest Fenn. Tell us about K-Pro hiring you. She hasn't. Since she'll lose the big game, the sooner it comes out, the better you look. Again, never hired by me, ever, in a million years. Not once. So, that was easy to dispel. Yeah, a lot of Subchapter S's comment really kind of rings a bell nowadays, because he had an intricate web. And I think Alan and I are just scratching the surface, and I think we're on the backs of other folks who have gone down this rabbit hole, not with the ha-ha-ha side of it, but just the going into his past, his businesses. There's a there. There's certainly a there. What it all means, I don't know. Tell us about Justin or whomever. No one hired me, bro. I don't like Justin. I've said that numerous times. Justin's a liar, and a lot of people in the Chase community found that out recently. And the auction website shouldn't have ever not been in play. It's always been in play, I think. Indy's one of the pioneers of that auction website, trying to get people to look at it. It's the same regard I have for anyone who's discounting other stuff and going, oh, that's just a hoax. Like, for instance, just talking on, again, not to belabor it, but Darren, when he was on K-Pro Show talking about, you know, the Ha 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 book being discredited because it's a scam because it was written by Rod Addix. I found out Rod Addix's name a week ago. Prior to that, magically Darren came out with that name on K-Pro Show, but like Alan and I literally called Diane Dalby, who sent some of y'all letters, and talked with her and got her to name the right. Don't tell anybody, but it's Rod Addicts. I was like, oh, you don't even know who I am. What do you mean, don't tell anybody? So it was a very strange phone call, a series of phone calls that I had with Diane. But that book, Plague of Justice, read it. It's about a guy whose dad was murdered by Rod Addicts and a couple of other people, and he was mad that Rod Addicts was paroled in 1989, but Rod Addicts was in jail from 74 to 89. There's a lot of hole in that story. It did not prove anything. It's unfortunate that this Rod Addicts is a murderer, yeah, but he didn't write haha. All I know is Forrest Fenn absolutely did not tell us the truth on purpose, and I think he wanted us to know what the truth is. Whatever that truth is. Whatever it is. I certainly do think that Fenn's network was much larger than people know about and included names people didn't know about, and therefore I don't know what the definition of a secret society is, but a group of individuals who have power, who don't share their knowledge and don't share intimate details of what they discuss in secret, I would call that a secret society. I mean, I'm not calling it the Illuminati, but there's something weird going on with Fenn's past, yeah. Do you call Diane DB for short? That's funny. That made me snort. Who is your top DB Cooper suspect today? Oh, good grief. At this point, still Skippy. Still Skippy. But, you know, Skippy is just as good a suspect as anybody else. Who knows? Skippy has the most private, secret background, so there's lots of room there to just assume it's Skippy. There's no proof or anything like that, but... Do I also think Forrest is Jackie Gleason? Now we can watch Jackie Gleason while we eat! That's from Back to the Future. Oof, brought it back to a solve. Bam! What's up, Sam? You say China in the house. What else? I had something. There was... I don't want to get back into that. Come on, Missy. Write me back to that one. Yeah, agreed, Jake. Sorry, I was getting a message there. And off L's comment, honestly, wasn't there issues around Skippy in the military? I don't know. I wonder about just the whole story of Forrest Fenn. I really do. I believe he had cancer. I believe he only had one kidney left. I mean, I guess I take that at face value. I know he was in the Air Force. You know, there's basics of the foundation of the story that are true. And that's how you build any good house of cards. You got to have a really good foundation. But I still think a house of cards is what ends up being visible here. They got that guy doing the thing. I still hear it. Ugh. Maybe you hear it less. I don't know. Do I think Ted Braden knew Forrest Fenn in Germany? I mean, see, this is the thing. Forrest being out and about the world, anything is possible with who he knew. Bobby says the autobiography in the chest will disclose he was Dan Cooper or Skippy. What's up, K-Pro? I mean, if you think he's involved in the story, yeah, in a perfect world, that's exactly what will happen. But who knows? Who knows? DNA in there for a reason. I hope no one ever finds out. Yeah, I mean, that's a legit... We've played it. I could play it again. That's a legit That's a legit line, man. I mean, let me make this bigger. Hold on. Forrest Fenn Mills interview. It was the 2013 one, was it not?
Beautiful. Quote. That's interesting. Now, most municipalities and schools, they will bury a time capsule with everything that's happening then. You're sort of putting a time capsule, but with a touch of the infinite, because some of the things that you have inscribed on the bells are things like, ring the bell loudly, for he who dies with over $50 is a failure.
That's an Errol Flynn quote.
And an Albert Einstein quote, imagination is more important than knowledge. I think that's what you have on there.
But I altered it a little bit.
Better.
You need imagination.
Is better than knowledge.
So
and
anything that involves Forrest Fenn and imagination should not be ridiculed, in my opinion.
Another one that I just love. If you should ever think of me 1,000 years from now,
please ring my bell so I will know. And 1,000 years from now, Lorraine, when somebody digs that bell up and rings it,
and 1,000 years from now, that bell, I'm telling you, he purposely
we'll do,
fumbled the jars and bells to make you think the jars were not findable. The jars are findable, guys.
And I think the sound is almost has a magical quality to it.
Well, I make these things out of wax, and I take them to Shidoni Foundry in Tasuki, and they cast them for me. I probably made, I want to think, 40 of these things. And I have another 28 that I'm going to bury. I've buried 8 so far. If I can live long enough, I'm going to bury all of them.
You don't actually dig the 4-foot hole yourself, do you?
Sure I do.
Sure I do.
Well, you're very fit for it.
Sure I do.
I don't want anybody to know where they are.
Oh, that's right. Well, now that's the other question that people are always asking about the treasure. Who else knows where it is? And what's your mafia quote?
Oh, here we go.
2 people can keep a secret.
Well,
if
is that
one
it?
of them is dead.
Yeah.
I think it's in a minute.
The fact is, there are no secrets.
Oh, here, yeah.
There are just some stories that just haven't been told yet.
Yeah. And how will you know? The other question people always ask is, how will you know if it's been found?
The type of guy that's going to find that treasure chest is the type of guy that can't keep it quiet. That's my theory.
Alan and I have a solve for that exact quote. It's part of our solve.
Hold, but who knows? I mean, we're a very diverse population. Everybody has a different idea. Whoever finds that treasure chest, the IRS is going to want their part of it.
Well, we're speaking today with the treasure hider and definitely
I'm bringing us out.
many treasure seekers, Mr. Forrest Fenn. Now, at one point you said, and it's written on one of your bells, it doesn't matter who you are.
Here we go.
It only matters who they think you are. So, Forrest, who are you, and who do people think you are?
I hope nobody ever finds out.
The real Forrest Fenn.
I think, I don't...
Before he continued, that line alone, doesn't that make you question every single thing about him? From moment one? I hope nobody ever finds out. You just think, we just think he's being witty?
I know that I'm different from anybody else, but I can look at myself and look at what I've done, and I tell myself I'm a number of different people. And I think that's good,
I'm a number of different people.
I was a fighter pilot. I was an art dealer. I don't know that I've done more things than other people have done, but I know that I've enjoyed what I've done, and it's all part of the human makeup, I think. If you haven't been consumed by something in your life, then I think you deserve another turn.
Well, in your biography, your memoir, you talk about you flew how many fighter missions in Vietnam?
I flew 328 combat missions in Vietnam.
No, we have 2 different interviews from 1969 where he goes, nope, my last flight was 305.
And once or twice you were shot down.
I was shot down twice.
And you had you described this extraordinary experience that you had being shot down in this little valley with a waterfall and tripping over something.
I tripped over a grave marker. It was a stone grave marker, about 14, 15 inches wide. It was face down. And I didn't know what it was really, except there were a lot of aluminum grave markers around in the tall grass where I tripped. And I turned it over, and there was an inscription on a French soldier's name. And then in English it said, "If you should ever think of me, when I have passed this veil, and wish to please my ghost, forgive a sinner and smile at a homely girl."
Wow.
And one thing led to another. I came home 2 days later, and I didn't think much about it because the homecoming and being...
I could listen to him for hours. I mean, honestly. Let's go to where I actually have permission. I actually have permission from these guys, so I'll actually just go to them, and so we will thank you, AGK. We'll go to the playlist because Toby has this really set up well. I think it's always good to go back to what do you mean, Paul? Really, Ben? I mean, really, what? What are we talking about? The old school interviews. This one's good. Doug Preston being that. Let's do this one.
Simpson wrote a book called Right in the Old Kazoo. And you remind me of that.
Right in the old
Ask him
kazoo.
what a kazoo is, he'll say it's the Wyoming end of a mule that's...
Yes, I know what a kazoo is.
The audio is funky on some of these though.
But I gotta tell you, this guy...
Oh, we watched the same interviews. Well, I'm doing a different interview this time.
Number one on the New York Times bestseller list. That's not too bad. This guy was voted New Mexico's favorite writer. I can't imagine why, but...
And Forrest has sold more books than all of us together.
And cut out the middleman too. You know, I mean, it's pure profit from this guy.
It's amazing.
It is.
Do you know he's made more profit on this book than it cost him to bury in the treasure? No, no, that's not true because the profits are going to charity. But
Are they? Were they?
Well, I think, Forrest, really, I know you said you wanted us to talk about ourselves, and we can do that a little bit, but really, I think you got to talk about your new book.
yeah, I'd love to hear about it.
Well,
I understand it was ghostwritten, but
if you read the preface to my book, you'll understand why I titled it Too Far to Walk. But when I wrote The Thrill of the Chase...
So did everybody in the community agree that meant 10 miles? 10 miles, that's too far to walk? Is that what people took from that? What, is Copper Dan here? Oh, hey, what's up, Copper Dan?
I've written 9 books, but I never did consider myself a writer, really. I was kind of a hacker.
Didn't we have that book discrepancy? How many books he had written? 10 miles, yeah, okay. Just making sure.
And I told a story in my book.
Well, I like that, Mario. 2 miles is too far to walk to school, though.
The Thrill of the Chase. But I read J.D. Salinger's book, Catcher in the Rye. It was very much celebrated. Everybody was talking about Catcher in the Rye, and I read that book, and I said, if this is a... I can do that.
He loves telling that. Yeah, I can do that. Shit, that's easy.
I I grew up with Mickey Spillane.
Mickey's, oh, yeah, my memory's quick.
I the jury.
I the jury.
And you remind me of him a little.
I remind, thank you.
Except he was a lot more fun.
Yeah. This is tough.
Anyway, I started writing.
We've all heard this.
And I credit my with pushing me through my life. It's exciting. Hold your hand up, Peggy. You deserve it.
This is something that you were compelled to do, and that you did it with that kind of motivation is really where the best writers come from.
Well, you two guys write murder mysteries, and which means that you have to know what you're going to say before you get started.
You have to know what you're going to say before you get started. But let's soak that in, because you apply that to a TV show. You can't write a mystery TV show unless you know what your ending is ahead of time. So that means Forrest is basically saying he knows his ending ahead of time. But he's going to throw it off and go, well, then that's not what I'm doing. I'm not writing a mystery novel or some shit like that. I don't have this one memorized. But I guarantee you that's the hint that should be taken from this.
Well, anyway, 60% through the book, you're supposed to have a climax where everything comes to a boil.
Have you been taking writers courses somewhere, like going to writers groups or studying? Because that's wrong for us.
Just hearing it all. And these guys have to know where they're going because they have to have an ending. When I write, I can just turn myself loose and say anything I want to because I don't have any rules. You guys have rules. You have editors. And you were saying earlier that you turn your book in, your editor sends it back once you change a bunch of stuff.
Well, that's one of the things I love about Too Far to Walk is the directness of it. And thank God you didn't have an editor. You know, I mean, I think that there's a simplicity.
I agree, K-Pro. Could have other meanings. Exactly. But my pushiness comes from, you don't have to accept my meaning of it. I'm just asking to don't just take the surface level meaning and move on from it, which is what a lot of times all of us are prone to do because there's just so much information thrown at you. It's the same thing, again, for a TV show strategy. You want to hide a mystery? Throw a bunch of bullshit at your audience to disguise shit.
To your stories, it's almost like you're sitting around the campfire and you're just telling the stories and there's no sort of artificial thing. I have a question for you. The design of that book is really unique. I've never seen a book quite like that, which is, involves writing.
When Doug asks like a pre-planned question like this, my ears really perk up because, all right, this was scripted. Doug wanted a point to get this in at some juncture in the interview or whatever this is. So
there's beautiful drawings in the book, which I hope you'll talk about.
So because of drawings,
these old photographs and the way it's all put together, it's an absolutely gorgeous book.
Can we discuss something real quick? I was told Ronald Reagan was it not Ronald Reagan? was it just whoever that governor was who I've never heard of from California or something? I mean Reagan comes from California, but like the thing that was talked and the only thing that someone found in an actual news article, because Fenn said it was not the original source or LA Times. It was the Missoula's, and it was somebody else. So like, what the fuck, man? Now that would fit the criteria of, hey, I don't always tell you guys the truth. I embellish. Did he really get drunk with Jackie O? Maybe he got drunk with Jackie O's security guard instead, but says Jackie O. I don't know. Douglas and Forrest met before our interview and discussed how they would respond to questions. I am sure they did that with previous interviews. Yes, that's great insight. That's what I would expect from people that were in on it together. Doug knew more than he let on. That's the only explanation. There's no. How does Doug help Fenn with a poem when he doesn't know the answer to the poem? He has to. What are they strategizing about? If Doug doesn't know anything, there's no need to strategize. In fact, strategizing would just give Doug ideas of maybe what the answer is.
So how did you get the idea for that? Tell us about the drawings and the artist and how you managed to come up with this really original way of presenting your life.
Well, I hate to read anything where the next sentence is predictable. And I've written that.
I'd say this shit is very unpredictable. I've written 9 books.
And in each of my books I've made up words. And I look in the dictionary to make sure it isn't there. My argument is, if I use a word and the reader knows exactly what I'm talking about, then who cares what the word is? I've done that in all my books. And I've said some things in my book. I've made some deliberate errors just to see if anybody would find them, and they don't, and they haven't.
Well, they're just being polite. But you know, Forrest, I think Doug's point is really well made. I mean, you have this natural storyteller ability, and it shines through not only in the words that you put on the page, but in the way the whole book is put together, and in the way it presents itself to the reader.
He said this is my 9th book, correct?
Well made. I mean, you have this natural storyteller.
Books, and in each of my books I've made up words. And
Life.
well, I hate to read anything where the next sentence is predictable. And I've written 9 books, and
Preface, page 4. Get out your thrill of the chase. This book is my 9th. He's at Too Far to Walk. That's his 10th. What's the answer? What the treasure hunting book tells us that's been edited, looked at thousands of fucking times? It's not hard to find. You don't have to jump to a specific page. It's the first page in the book. Bottom paragraph. This book is my 9th. And in here, he's proclaiming that Too Far to Walk is his 9th.
in each of my books I've made up words. And I've written 9 books, and in each of my books I've made up words. And I look in the dictionary to make sure it isn't there. My argument is, if I use a word and the reader knows exactly what I'm talking about, then who cares what the word is? I've done that in all my books.
I believe that he meant he had written 9 books prior to Too Far to Walk. Okay. I present to you the dust cover. This is his 8th book. What? Let's get the explanation for that one. Which version of the stories are we going with? Again, I bring you back to the Matrix trailer, folks. Changes. That's called a discrepancy, folks. Should I play the Matrix trailer again to remind you people? Because I think I'm going to. There's a reason I played it.
Deja vu is usually a glitch in the Matrix. It happens when they change something.
When they change something.
It happens when they change something. It happens when they change something. this isn't the story we think it is.
Maybe this isn't the story we think it is. It happens when they change something. It's been changed. Why? It's important. Is it a Fugazi or is it a Fugazi? Fugazi, Fugazi. We are in the Matrix, folks, if we're in the Forrest Fenn chase, because he is absolutely messing with us. I need a minute before I get back into listening to the man, because he's messing with you, he's messing with me, every single time he opens his mouth. Why? For a very boring walk along the Madison River, no offense, for as far as the treasure hunt goes, to 9 Mile Hole, that's it? CK Pro. Oh yeah, Davio, me messing with myself is absolutely part of that plan. He did it to all of us. No one's immune. But we just listened to a minute's worth where he said everything he did is planned. I don't want my next sentence to be predictable. What's his very next sentence? I wrote 9 books. That's intention, guys. I'm going to do it again because you need to understand it like in your skulls.
Tell us about the drawings and the artist and how you managed.
He specifically says, I don't want my next sentence to be predictable, and then follows it up with the lie that we're uncovering.
Read anything where the next sentence is predictable. And I've written 9 books, and in each of my books I've made up words. And I look in the dictionary to make sure it isn't there. My argument is, if I use a word and the reader knows exactly what I'm talking about, then who cares what the word is? I've done that in all my books, and I've said some things in my book. I've made some deliberate errors just to see if anybody would
Davio, replay what I've done. I've already gone over there's different discrepancies in either version you choose.
It's really well made. I mean, you have this natural storyteller ability, and it shines through not only in the words that you put on the page, but the way the whole book is put together, and in the way it presents itself to the reader. And I think that's what's really important about your writing, is that you tell a great story. And it's like you're sitting in a room with an old friend and you're listening to a grand tale that has a lot of truth to it.
Well, in The Thrill of the Chase, I talked about Hemingway's book, For Whom the Bell Tolls. And I talked about the mud and the dead horses and whatever. And I talked about being World War I and all the terrible things that happened. But it wasn't World War I at all. It was the Spanish Revolution. Not one person called my attention to the fact that I had named the wrong war in my book.
Yeah, but like, okay, and this is where I argue with the guy. Like, how do you know, man? I'm sure plenty of people read that and went, that's not World War. You know what I mean? Like, but he says this to, like, add to the mystique, I think. That's part of the sales stuff. See you, Lisa.
People are afraid of you. They're terrified of you. We know that you can put out a hit on either one of us at a moment's notice. Right?
Well, you were talking about my book. I see Lou.
There's always truth in jokes. Even if just a little bit.
Bruno there. Lou, stand up. Lou's not bashful. He'll wave to you. But Lou has been my, I don't know, what do you call yourself, Lou?
Creative.
Creative director. Yeah, that.
That's jargon for making things happen.
Who's Lou? Anyone in the chat now? Who's Lou? Remind me. Many a true word spoken in jest indeed. Indeed. So who's Lou?
But Lou is the one that
Lou's the one.
that hired the designer for my book.
Lou Bruno. Ah, Lou Bruno. Thank you. That's right.
But anyway,
That's like Bruno advertising,
we
right?
have meetings once a week, and we go over. They propose things to me, and we discuss them, and I approve them, and we go back and forth. And when the whole thing is finished,
Yeah.
Lou lets bid.
I
for
see.
the
Yeah, I've looked
thing,
into
and
that. Okay.
Talks to the binder, and he makes that. So I'm laughing at Lou while he does all the work.
You're saying it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
Well, I think any book, whether it's done with Lou or done through my publisher or done through Doug's publisher, winds up being collaboration because all of those things have to happen regardless. And fortunately, you're in a position where you can control a lot more of that than we can, but still, it's got your name on it, and you're the one that bears the total responsibility for it from beginning to end and from cover to cover.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean I can't blame them.
No, blame Lou. No,
Blame Lou.
Yeah, Lou, you're blamed.
It's very charming. Very charming.
Illustrator Danny Bodilson, I've known.
The old
I
rascal.
mean, there's 10 kids in
10
Doc
kids.
Bodilson's family, and 8 of them have worked for me over the years. Yeah. And these guys write mysteries, but they don't illustrate their book. I can understand why you don't have an illustrator for your book.
Wait a minute, there was artwork in...
Why does he like that's so like
I think I'm gonna...
okay. So context to even these quirky statements. He lets on that like again like he's Vincini from The Princess Bride, Hemingway, Salinger, morons. Okay, he knows he's smart. He knows what a good book is, and he knows most good books don't have illustrations in them. That doesn't necessarily mean a good book can't have an illustration in it. It's just, he's making a grander point here that illustrations are important, in his eyes, to a good book, which is what he's trying to sell whenever he writes a book. So according to him, a good book will have an illustration, but again, he's being playful about it because he's making the larger point of the illustrations are important, in my opinion.
In Hard Country, there's artwork. There's a map.
That's not an illustration.
A map. That kind of shit is so pre-planned ahead of time in the back room. It's so annoying.
And there's a map, and then in the various different sections, there's a photograph. Section
Let's
one.
talk about Doug's books.
I tried to convince, Forrest had this idea, why don't you illustrate one of your thrillers? And I thought, the more I thought about it, the more I thought, that's a really good idea. I mean, books used to be illustrated. All the Sherlock Holmes books and stories, when they were published, were illustrated. That was a very common thing in the 19th century. Dickens' books were illustrated, so I went to my publisher, and it was just absolutely not. No, people will think it's a children's book. I said, this is a way to distinguish something, to elevate this above the crowd. Just there's so many thrillers published, so many murder mysteries. This will be something different, and they wouldn't even think about it. So
when you look at the great books, Last of the Mohicans, Blackbeard, I could go all down that were books that were illustrated by the Brandywine School painters, N.C. Wyeth, Harvey Dunn, Howard Powell, Maxfield Parrish, W.H.D. Kerner, and they're wonderful. Those books would not be 20% of what they are without those illustrations.
I totally agree with you, Mike. And in a way, I think I tried to do something like that with my first 4 novels. The first 4 books that I wrote, 2 of them were published by W.W. Norton, 2 by Scribner. I got.
I just did that for the lulz, Copper Dan.
Peter Hurd and Henriette Wyeth to do the illustrations for the hardbacks. Peter De La Fuente, who owns the Wyeth Hurd Gallery here in Santa Fe, did the illustrations for the cover art for those 4 first novels of mine, and they took off and became collectible. Partially because of who the artist was and the relationship to M.C. Wyeth and Peter Hurd and Henriette Wyeth and Andy Wyeth. And people were collecting those books on the basis of the cover art for the first 4 novels.
That's very interesting. That's really interesting.
But you guys are big shot writers. You should not let your editor tell you how to make a book. Why don't you tell him how you want to do it?
Doug and I we're leaving tomorrow. We're going to New York City.
Good.
We're gonna kick
The
some
bus
butt.
leaving at 8 o'clock.
Thank you, Danny.
Anyway, but this book, I've really enjoyed reading the stories. It's the kind of thing you can dip into it and read a story, but you know, as I was reading this book, and I know that this is a subject that some of you are very interested in, I was realizing, boy, you know, you could get out a map, and in fact there is a map in the book, and you could trace where Forrest is gone from reading this book, and you know what? That's a pretty big, you know, there's a big hint right there to where this treasure might be buried. Honestly. And I was thinking, maybe I should...
How do you know, sir? Oh, I'm just saying, you know, if you know about the guy's life, you're probably better and closer to finding the treasure. Okay, thank you for your regurgitated answer, Doug.
Should do that. No, wait a minute. No, I can't be good looking for this treasure there.
No, didn't you send me an email first, some guy that wrote you and said that he'd been to the event in April for the Thrill of the Chase?
Whisper, we talked about that like 20 minutes ago. I don't know. It's a good question.
They both had clues to the treasure room. Yeah. So there are people out there that are reading our books, though. They're going to find, you know, that's why I want you to read Backlands, you know, when it comes out next May.
I taught these guys everything they know, but not everything I know.
It's just, his planned zingers are so on point.
My last book, Two Graves, was dedicated to Forrest Fenn.
Someone should jot down every time Forrest takes a sip of water and then like compare it to the comment he had just made and then try to, anyway, that's the kind of shit I would do. Trying to like find a tell. So like Jack said Jack said he found 2 slip-ups. My strategy when I was getting into this was maybe there's a tell. Maybe there's a purposeful tell, a subtle thing that he does once a blue moon, and if you catch it, you'll know exactly what he's talking about. But I didn't get it, so
I'll just end right there.
I'm very honored you gave me a
Whisper, yeah, we were going over it. It was verse 9 versus 8 versus 9 again versus 8 versus the time of the printing of Too Far to Walk versus the Thrill of Chase. There's a discrepancy either way you look at it, off by 1.
Let's get to that. How many people here have looked for the treasure?
Every single one of them.
How many people here are here,
or at least know about
to
it?
see if there are going to be any clues accidentally? All right. Okay. Well, that's why we have to.
I had no idea people would misconstrue and research every word. Come on, he sees everybody put their hand up, hoping that he's going to drop some hidden clue or hint. Come on.
Start talking about this.
He knew. He knows.
Honestly, there are there clues in this new book that are not in the other one? There it is. Too Far to Walk, that are not in The Thrill of the Chase. Are there clues in this book?
There's one clue in this book that's not in The Thrill of the Chase, and I didn't know the clue was in this book until it was printed.
Now, and he always made such a big deal, much to do about a clue versus a hint. So why is he even dropping the word clue here intentionally? Like, he knows he's saying clue. Is it just a mistake to call it a clue when it's really a hint, or does he mean it's a clue?
Did you freak out when you knew
it's a clue because it's the map and with the poem? Well, then there's 9 clues in that book, are there not?
Where's Charmaine all red? Charmaine, hold your hand up. We can't see you, Charmaine. Charmaine and I owned a little 1-horse land in California. It has nothing to do with cows or horses or land, but it's a publishing company. And so Surmay's been with Surmay.
One Horse Land and Cattle reminds me a lot of Signum Books Limited, but I won't go there.
I've known her for, I think, 41 years. I talked about it just in the book. But we have more fun. And if I don't have an answer to a question, I just make up one. Because the person that asks the question needs an answer.
They deserve an answer.
Yes.
I agree with you. What's your point?
I forgot.
He's just teasing
A
everyone.
clue that you didn't know was in the book until after the book was finished.
That's right.
The accidental clue.
Yes,
That's a good title.
I like that.
I like that
You should
title.
write a book about
The
that.
accidental clue.
But let me talk a minute about the cover. Those are the
Okay, is he pretending that he forgot that they were talking about the accidental clue? Because the guy just told him, and again, he still goes to the cover, so it almost still feels like he's with it. He knows what he's doing.
that have been on the blogs know who Dal Neitzel is. He lives on a little island up in Washington
He doesn't skip a beat to really push Dale Neitzel into our living rooms.
State. But about 4 or 5 days before we were going to the printer, we didn't have a cover. And so I called Dal on the phone. I said, Dal, go to the Madison River, where I put a little rubber life raft.
How many of you have reenacted that photo?
And take a picture of your shadow.
I actually did it on the Madison,
exactly
too.
that spot where I put the rubber life raft in the water, and he did that. The shadow wasn't on there. We had to fake that later. But I think that's interesting that this is the very spot on the Madison River. It's about 10 miles from Baker's Hole.
That's where the treasure is.
Are you impressed with that?
That's a great story. I love that story.
That's where the treasure is.
And I tell the story about river bathing is best in this book. And this green around the edges, Dal Neitzel took that photograph exactly in the spot where I used to bathe when I was a kid in the Faro River in Wyoming. So that adds a little intrinsic value.
That's good.
Yeah.
I thought he took it on the Madison. Fenn saying he took it on the fire hole? Not that it matters to me, but I'm curious.
Do I see the gleam of gold in that picture?
Yeah.
Is that a coin right there?
Is that a clue?
You wouldn't know it if it was.
I wouldn't know. I don't.
But first, you were telling me about how many.
But notice how they're mocking, is that a clue, is that a clue, is that a clue? And then for Forrest, that later in life to go, I had no idea people would look into every single thing. I said, come on.
Emails you've gotten and how you're answering them. Talk about that. I was astonished.
Well, I passed 24,000 emails a couple of days ago, and
I don't think that's a
I'm
slip
still
up.
getting about 80 to 100 a day. But if a person writes me a real nice email, signs their
Could be
name,
wrong, though. I don't know.
doesn't ask me any questions, then I respond to it. Well, I have probably 15.
Someone should keep track of all the numbers he used. 15,000, 23,000.
I want to thank you for getting me and my kids off the couch and out into the mountains. And that's very rewarding. That's one of the
And is there going to be a third book?
What?
Will there be a third book? Dorothy has asked for a third book, and she asked me to see whether or not you'd be willing to write a
Are you asking me to say something about Texas? I don't understand what you're saying.
Texas? Taxes? No. Will this be a trilogy? Will you continue the story? Will we have more to read?
Well,
This is such a sales
I started
pitch.
writing a children's book, and I found that it came so natural to me. I didn't want to embarrass myself by finishing the book. So I don't want any suspenses anymore. I don't want deadlines. I don't want Lou Bruno telling me I can't do this, I can't do that. So
Oh, thank you,
I
Frenzy.
decided I'm
Gotcha.
just not going to write any more books, I don't think.
Well, the I don't think at the end of that sentence does leave a lot to be desired in terms of whether or not you will or won't write another book.
Who invited this guy?
Would you like me to restate the question?
No, I don't understand you.
Are you going to write another book first?
I don't think so, but I've written 5 books since I first made that statement, so I don't know.
All right, the answer is clear, folks.
The problem is that I don't consider myself a good writer, and I work 10 times harder on a sentence than you guys do.
I don't
It takes a
believe
lot
it.
more out of me than
Your sentences seem so natural. You know, the best piece of writing advice I ever got came from someone who said, "Look, if you're writing something and you're just all hung up and you can't, it's just complicated. You're trying to say something and it isn't working. Just think of the simple.
Whisper, you're gonna like when you go back like
just
20,
say it.
30 minutes before when you
Forget
hopped
the
in,
metaphors,
because
forget the
yeah,
fancy, language.
there's an
forget
off by
the
one
vocabulary.
discrepancy.
Say what you want to say, and that's probably the best way.
Doug, sometimes when I get to the end of a sentence, I forgot why I started it in the first place.
But first, you have to listen to what Doug's saying, because it's very important. What happened in the early part of the 20th century is that good storytelling got hijacked by English professors who just...
I didn't know he was gonna say that. I'm just saying. Look at his face when this guy says hijacked. What were we at, 2012?
important. What happened in the early part of the 20th century is that good storytelling got hijacked by
And Doug goes for the water.
English professors who decided they were going to be the ones that were going to tell the reading public what constituted literature and what didn't. Okay? And for the last 120 years or so, people have been falling for this idea that writers have to write in sort of a painterly way with lots of big words,
Yeah,
and lots of
I agree with
images,
this.
and lots of metaphors, and lots of this and lots of that. And 80% of those people who write those books are college professors who can't make a dime as writers. But they can teach other people how to write literature, right? Good storytelling is what the novel was always based on, right from the get-go, right from the beginning. It's always been adventure. It's always been exploration. It's always been the story of people, of men and women, doing remarkable things.
People push to the limit.
And that's what you do. You're a storyteller. Don't sell yourself short.
Yes, you're here.
If you read in The Thrill of the Chase, I wrote my obituary many years ago, and it says, "I wish I could have lived to do the things I was attributed to."
Well, yeah, in your case, there's been a hell of a lot attributed to you too, over the years, right?
You know, the simplest way I ever took that line in the beginning was, and I still, it didn't make any sense. I was like, okay, maybe he means the grave robbing. That's been attributed to him, but he didn't do it. But he goes, I wish I could have. It's just such a strange sentence, even all these years later.
Yes, I often hear Forrest referred to as the controversial Forrest Fenn.
Eccentric.
Which is quite an honor, I think.
Well, I've been called eccentric, and I'm flattered by that, because the difference between an eccentric and a kook is that eccentric has money.
Well, yeah, and one of the things that allows you to become even more eccentric first is to be a writer. Because writers, by definition,
Yo, this stuff is so strong.
5 years ago, I couldn't spell Arthur, now R1.
So getting back to the treasure room and the 23,000 emails you've gotten, we had one...
Whoa! Remember, scroll back like 5 minutes ago. I said someone should write down all the times they say these email numbers, 15,000, 23,000, and then this MFer right here says, talk about your 23,000 emails again. Bitch, he said 15,000 like 5 minutes ago, and come on.
He told me some really interesting stories about some people who were looking for the treasure and that you had met, and some of the stratagems and ruses that some of these crazy people tried to use on you to get you to reveal where the treasure was, and some of the experiences you had with... tell
5 Leaf. Nobody was attributed Forrest Fenn to being D.B. Cooper in 2013, 2012, 2011, 2010. Nobody.
Tell the audience about some of those. I thought that was very interesting.
Well, Stephanie, hold your hand up. That's Stephanie 38. This is the 45th
Speak of
time
the devil.
that she's been looking for the treasure from Chicago.
Oh my God.
We'll give an A for tenacity.
Oh my God.
But she enjoys it, and there was a lady, a writer from Texas, called me on the phone and she says, Mr. Fenn, who is your audience for this book? I've told this story before, and I said, my audience is every redneck with a pickup truck that lost his job, has a wife and 12 kids and nothing to do. Throw your bedroll in the back of the truck and go look for the treasure and take your kids with you. And I've had so many emails from people that have told me that that's exactly what they're doing.
Well, you've helped grow the New Mexico economy, actually.
Yeah, DB jumped at about 10,200
Has the
feet.
Chamber of Commerce given you an award yet for bringing thousands of people to northern New Mexico to search for treasure?
No, but I got a Pulitzer for this book.
You got a Pulitzer?
Yeah, they lost it in the mail though.
Yeah. that happened to me one day too. Yeah.
Well, set your alarm for 3 a.m. because the Nobel Committee might be calling soon.
Well, listen, I'm looking at the time here. Do you have any more you want to say, or shall we go to break?
I'm sitting here taking notes on what you're saying. Just keep talking.
No, but I was interested first when you told
Or
me
shall we go drink?
that there have been, how many people have called you up and said, I found the treasure?
I have, the last time I counted, I had 35 different men that
35.
said that they found a treasure and it's in their possession. So about half of them, I say, will you sell me the little bracelet back? And they say, well, what bracelet?
Time out. Time out. What bracelet? Anybody who is emailing Forrest Fenn read The Thrill of the Chase, and they know damn well what bracelet he's talking about. He's making this up. Nobody is saying what bracelet to him. He is literally making this up. For what purpose? Don't know. But he's absolutely force-feeding another thing that's not really true. I find it hard to believe that people would email. They would know to email Forrest Fenn, and they've gone out looking for the treasure to the point where they think they found it without buying the book, and never reading about the 22 turquoise beaded bracelet. Come on, made up.
And one time I asked this guy, I said, well, he said, I found it, I'm looking at it right now. And I said, well, can you tell me if the hot water ruined the patina on that beautiful bronze box? He said, thank you, and he hung up.
Yeah, but 5 Leaf, he also put it in the book that was written in 2010, and still, nobody was calling him D.B. Cooper then.
He thought that was a clue. He was going to start going to all the places where there's hot water.
Well, we got Caliente, here we come.
And what about the guy with the broken down pickup truck? Who needed your help with that?
Well, there was a guy, he said, my truck is beat up. He said, but I know where the treasure chest is. He said, if my truck stops running in the mountains, he said, will you pick me up and take me the rest of the way to the treasure?
Yeah, I have a hard time believing even that is a real email.
The thing, I think these guys are pretty original. The man called me on the phone and told me that he had found my treasure and that he wasn't going to sell me the bracelet back because he wanted to keep it. He said, I just want you to know that I have your treasure chest. I said, well, I don't believe you. He said, well, that's certainly true. And I said, well, in 30 minutes, I'm going to go out and see if the treasure's still there and find out whether you're telling the truth or not. So I waited 30 minutes. I drove out of my driveway and there was a black limo. He started up and followed me.
Where'd you go?
I should have driven to Montana or.
Agreed, Wayfarer.
You've got to answer this question truthfully. Has this been just a hell of a lot of fun for you? I mean, are you having a good time with this? Because you sure act like you are. I mean, is this one of the most humorous things you've ever done in your life?
It's the most outrageous thing I ever done.
One of the most humorous things you've ever done? This cat was really feeding a lot of one-liners to Fenn. Ha ha ha.
But yeah, it's fun. It's fun to see what people are doing. Everybody sends me an email and tells me exactly where they've been, and there's a certain percentage of searchers.
I've read quotes where he goes, "Nobody tells me exactly where they go because they don't want to tell me, so I don't know if people have been closer." Wait, he just said everybody tells them exactly where they've been.
That will not accept the fact that they're wrong. So they'll send me an email. I went to there where the treasure chest was, but it's gone. Well, one of two things happen: either the whole thing's a hoax, or somebody's already taken it, and you should let everybody else know the treasure's been found.
So, a number of people get angry at you, don't they?
Yeah.
Weren't they threatening to sue you?
To sue me?
Yeah.
There was one guy that said he was going to go talk to his lawyer. Yeah. Well, people, there are a small group of people that are obsessed by the treasure hunt, and a lot of them look at it as a real adventure, something to do, particularly with the kids. This last summer, I don't know how many people are looking, but I wouldn't be surprised if 30 or 35 or 40,000 people are looking. The emails I get, and I get emails
Now 30, 40,000.
from little kids, 8, 9-year-old kids are sending me emails saying, "My dad won't take me out again this weekend. Would you call him, please?"
The converse of that, Forrest, I'd like to ask the audience, how many people here have never looked for the treasure? So
Peggy's got her hand raised.
Peggy, you raised your hand? Yeah, okay.
Peggy, what do you think of all this treasure hunting business?
You don't want to know.
That's right. But I know what you really think, Peggy. We all know. But
I know it's got some of my gold.
some of your gold?
Yeah,
Some of your gold?
He bought it from me. I sold him Krugerrands for $2.20 an ounce.
Yeah.
Boy, what a chump I am.
Wow, there's proof right there.
I've seen, well, Doug and I have both, we've seen the treasure.
Oh, I've seen it.
We've
Yeah.
seen the chest, we've seen the contents. It was mind-boggling and jaw-dropping when I first saw it for the
But
first time.
that was a really heavy chest.
It was a heavy chest.
I mean, did you really manage to do that on your own?
Or did Shiloh help you carry it to the Shiloh? Did Shiloh help carry it?
Well, I've said before that the treasure chest is heavy.
How old is Shiloh at this point in time? He's got to be like 24.
And I made 2 trips to hide it where I wanted it to be. But I've told people, don't look for the treasure chest in a place where a 79 or 80-year-old guy can't take it. I mean, people tell me they're climbing up on top of the mountain.
Yeah.
When these guys are making a mistake, I don't want to interrupt them.
Right. Right, but you have,
Yeah,
you
totally,
have
Wayfarer,
narrowed the
completely.
field of exploration down to the Rockies north of Santa Fe. So there's only several 100 million square miles that really needs to be paid attention to at a reduced elevation, right? So can you say no higher than...
I'll give you another clue, just because you're such a nice guy.
Okay.
The treasure is hidden below 20,000 feet.
That really helps.
I'm gone, man.
You guys are impossible.
Well, it's your party, you invited us.
But I've gotten some really interesting emails. This one kid sent me an email. He says, "Mr. Fenn, if I find a treasure chest, do I have to share it with my sister?"
And you said, yes, you do.
And I wrote him back and I said, "Ask your father."
Let's just pretend whenever he brings up an email, it's bullshit, right? But he's telling it for some kind of reason. What would be the point of this one? Do I have to share it with my sister? Ask your father. What's he trying to say?
And he wrote back and said, "No, I don't want to ask my father."
And then he goes for the water.
Do we want to take some questions first? Are you up for a few questions from the
Sure.
We'll repeat them so everyone can hear. So.
Okay. The fellow in the back there.
Hi, Forrest. I was here for your
Can
last.
you speak up a little bit?
Yeah, hi, Forrest. I was here for your last review, and Dal was here. Stephanie wasn't, though. I read your blog, so. I know that you've been giving clues on the Today Show, and the last one that I heard was that's not in Utah, not in Idaho. Has there been another clue given out since then?
Okay, the question was, you've been giving clues on the Today Show, and you heard the last clue was that it was not in Idaho and not in Utah. Have you given out any other clues since then?
Not deliberately.
Just the accidental one in the book.
But those clues are not really viable, because if you look at a map of the Rocky Mountains, there's this much of it is in Idaho and this much is in Utah. So it's really, I haven't given a clue I think that was going to help anybody's situation.
He really doesn't want anybody to find this treasure.
Well, let me put this in perspective. So many people have decided they're going to take a picnic lunch out on Sunday and look for the treasure, or something to do over spring break. I'm looking at 100 years back.
What serious searcher was telling Forrest that they're just going to find this in the middle of a picnic? While he's also complaining that people are going to go where a 79 or 80-year-old won't go. You can't have it both ways. So again, there's a reason he's pushing that narrative for the 1000th time. And I just...
Down the road, 1,000 years, maybe 10,000 years down the road. It took me 15 years to write the poem. I changed it so many times, and I've said before that I didn't write that poem. It was written by an architect. I mean, each word is
I bet Doug's going for the water.
deliberate.
Oh no, he's coughing.
So the chances are not good for the searchers. Stephanie, I'm sorry. But keep looking, keep coming to New Mexico, bring your charge cards.
She's been to Idaho, Montana, Wyoming.
It sounds like she's a young soul. Another question, please. Okay, good.
Who's been closer, me or Dale?
Who's been closer, Stephanie or Dale?
If I told you that, you'd faint.
I peed right now.
Haven't you said, though, that people have come within like 500 feet of where the
People
treasure?
tell me where they are, and they're very precise in their descriptions of where they are and where they've been, and I can tell that some of them have been pretty close.
That's close, yeah. Another question? Senor,
Will a metal detector help?
will a metal detector help?
A metal detector will help you if you're in exactly the right spot.
Okay, that's a lot of help, isn't it? Yeah.
Did you say just a minute ago that it's not on the top of a mountain?
Did you say just a minute ago that it's not on the top of a mountain?
I hope I didn't say that. Yeah, I'll tell you that it's not on the top of any mountain. That's a big clue, because there's lots of mountains out
That's
there.
a huge clue. So
He's just, again, this all just feels like mocking the searcher.
It may be close to the top.
Yes. David.
Why do you think people are telling you that they found the treasure? I don't see the psychology of why they trick them.
Because they don't.
I think they want their 15 minutes, and I know for a fact that most of these guys that told me that they have found a treasure chest, they've searched for it extensively and have not been able to find it. So I think rather than just give up, they just claim they found it.
Or they might think that maybe you're going to say, well, if it isn't in that cave, 5 miles on New Mexico 23, then you didn't find it. I mean, they're hoping you're going to drop some clue.
I think you're right, Doug. I think that's part of the psychology of those kind of emails and phone calls, is to try to see if they can cajole him into giving us some
If a
information.
person reads the poem over and over and are able to decipher the first few clues in the poem, they can.
Motherfucker just said decipher. I mean, 5 leaf. There you go. You know. Decipher can mean anything, for the record, I know, but still.
I could go right straight to it.
Amazing. Man has incredible power.
You're so easy.
Would you take a partner along?
Would you take a partner along when you go to it?
Do you have an airplane?
I've got my bushwhacker.
Well, I don't know, maybe.
I'm curious, is there anybody here who thinks that they are pretty close and really think they know where it is? Wow, that's great. Okay, yeah, how come you haven't gone to get it yet?
Because there hasn't been a blend of mind and moment yet.
There hasn't been a blend of mind and moment yet? Yeah. All right.
Wasn't there.
It wasn't there. Oh, you're the one. Oh, he moved it. He saw you were coming, he moved it.
I'm sure.
Yes.
First of all, what's your phone number? I'm just kidding.
No, she wanted to know your phone number, and now she says she's kidding.
And your credit card number.
Okay, say it again. Tell me.
Okay. Do we look at the poem more as a physical location or a metaphysical location?
Do we look at the poem more as a physical location or a metaphysical location?
Metaphysical.
Must be a physical location.
Well, when I wrote that poem, I wasn't playing any games. It's straightforward.
Any more questions?
Yeah. I don't have a question, I have a comment.
Okay.
Thank you, as many others, we've had really fun looking, and it has been the thrill of the chase rather than the finding of the chase.
She says thank you on behalf of herself and many others. It really has been the thrill of the chase.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Ben.
It really has been.
The mountain man over there wants to say something.
How do I get the bracelet back to you once I find the treasure?
UPS.
What can Brown do for you?
I have a question about a photograph. I'm not sure if it's being too far to walk, but on the blog, under Happy Birthday, there's a photo of you and your brother sitting in a push car, a little metal push car, and there's a porch swing and a fence. Are you familiar with that photograph? No. All right.
It's found in our lifetime, and we have a celebration.
If it's found in our lifetime, can we have a celebration?
Sure. You can have a celebration even if it isn't there.
Let's take one more question from this gentleman here.
How many clues has someone cracked?
How many clues has someone cracked
They told you.
that you know of?
I know they've cracked the first two
That's it.
and went right past the treasure chest. Several people have done that.
There you go. Wow, that is so tantalizing. That's incredible.
Because of all this, I've read all your books, so I am a big fan.
No, I know, Bo. We've all done the shit, seen the shit out of this, but it's always nice to just go back.
That would be good for you.
We can pick a new one after this. I don't care.
The idea of illustrating our books for both of us is a great idea. We ought to go there and tell our publishers that we're in charge. We want to do that. So.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, we're going to do that then.
Let's see what Pendergast looks like.
Well, when I was thinking about writing my children's book, I asked Dal on his blog to ask cartoonists or illustrators to send samples of their illustrations, and let's publish them on the blog, and let me see what I have to work with. And I was startled with the number of people that really have talent to illustrate. And
Well, the other authors could do that. Ask people.
All right, what's the next one we should do?
Illustrations. That would be fun.
We could do that. We could ask people to contribute.
You want to watch the confirmation bias
In
video?
fact, on my website,
The Jack one? Like,
there are
why?
a lot of people who done illustrations of Pendergast and other characters in my books that we post fans. We've done fan art.
You can give me a good reason why, maybe.
And some of them are pretty good. I mean, really close as to what I see.
An illustration can say so much more than words can say in some instances.
And I think the fellow who illustrated your book, Dan Bodelson, is really talented. I really like those illustrations.
Well, this is the only book that he's ever illustrated, and he didn't think that he could do it. He's a fine art painter. And I said, well, let's give it a shot. So he did. And we argued about a few things, and I sent some back to him, but finally I told him, I said, draw me the second drawing first.
It'd be funny to do the confirmation bias videos. Just go to Jack's YouTube. He can copyright me.
Thank you all very much. It's been a pleasure to be with you here tonight. Thank you.
Do the interview with Doug F. and Shiloh. I feel like I actually have done that recently, though. All right, we'll do a poll. We'll do a quick poll. All right, what are the options? We're going to do confirmation bias versus Doug F. and Shiloh. Doug FF and Shiloh, Jack's confirmation bias. Boom. Little mini poll. We'll do it for like 5 minutes. Did it like work though? I don't know if it did. Okay, there it is. Always good to have a little break too. Carrie wants that Doug and fucking Shiloh video. Alan might come on at 1. I don't know if I'll be on at 1. We'll see. See how this goes. I'm enjoying this. $60-40 on Doug and FF and Shiloh right now. Play both marathon time? Maybe. It's been a while, especially since we've done a day stream. No, I'm not doing that one, Frenzy. Trending. It's trending. Throw in your votes, players. I'm only doing this for like the rest of the song. Oh, this is a long song. Yeesh, I might even cut the song off. Am I going boots on the ground in New Mexico? No. I mean, not for any reason right now. That's fucked up. Looks like we're gonna be doing Doug FF and Shiloh, unless there's a last second push for Jack's confirmation bias video. We can make fun of it. Fuck it, do them all. Maybe. Fuck it. We do them all. A canopy of stars? The auction website. That's still a thing, Rusty. I know others are looking into it. I'm still looking into it myself. Looks like we're going Doug, Fenn, and Shiloh.
Oh, you're going to say.
I know that poll doesn't show up for everybody, so if you don't see it, sorry. Like, refresh, hop back in, come back out, whatever. Go to live chat, sometimes that works. Alright, poll's closing in 30 seconds. Hey Jake, yeah, appreciate that, man. And we're closed. We're going to go watch Forrest Fenn and Shiloh and Doug in 2017. New context. Lots of shenanigans have occurred. There have been searcher deaths at this point. There have been break-ins to Fenn's property. There have been people held at gunpoint. There have been people arrested. We are in a new phase of the chase. I think that much is certain. Shiloh's with him. I think at this point we're hearing that Shiloh takes Fenn pretty much everywhere to these kind of events. So they're kind of attached to the hip. I bet you that was fun as hell for Shiloh and Fenn. Ha ha ha. Was that really how many votes it was? 22? Perfect, 22. So, all right, so that's our context. Let's dig in. I'll mess with the audio. So tell me if it's...
Hello, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us here today. Most of you guys don't know who I am, and that's okay. My name is Shiloh Old. My middle name's Forrest, after my grandfather Forrest. I'm up here just to introduce these guys, although they probably don't need much of an introduction.
Tell me what you think now.
Also,
on the audio.
After we have some dialogue, there's going to be a little bit of a question and answer period at the end of the evening, and if you folks can speak up, if he can't understand what you're saying, a lifetime of flying fighters means that when you're 80-something years old, you can't hear entirely well. So if he has trouble hearing anything, I'll be repeating the question. First, I'd like to thank you guys all for being here. This is a crazy turnout, and I don't think that anybody expected there to be quite this many people. When word got out a month ago or so that this event was happening, Dorothy called me and she said, "We have a problem." And if you guys know Dorothy, she's tough. And she doesn't get scared easily. So I thought, uh-oh, who died? You know, something happened. And she said, "No, we're going to have too many people." And I said, "That is the good problem. Don't worry, just let people in."
I'm an asshole. Can I also remind everybody that still, I know the one argument is he was joking, but Shiloh, if we believe K-Pro, gives her, boom, ask me anything you want. Okay, what's Homer Brown? Nope, not telling you that. Okay, what about any of the clues? Nope. What about this? Okay, what about this? What about D.B. Cooper? That's an interesting story. Notice how I didn't answer that question? Like, why would he do that?
Opened the floodgates, and then she started talking to me about fire code. And anyway, she's a lot more organized
loud?
than I am.
Sorry.
And there's seats for everybody. So I know that
Turn
at
it
least
down
a
a little
handful
bit.
of you
Should be
folks
right.
came in from way out of town, and that's crazy to us, I think. But thank you for being here. I'd really like to thank Dorothy and her staff at Collected Works. They've done a really great job. Yeah, round of applause for her.
I like that, yeah. You can go into a book alone.
Who are from here, you know this is really just a cool place in town. You can come in here any day of the week and see people studying and learning.
Yeah, he's only 32, but, like, this dude's knowledgeable. I think he's, like, fluent in a couple languages, learning a third, like, works for a living. You know what I mean? Like, you know, graduated, like, pretty accomplished guy.
And reading and getting jazzed up on coffee. And I wish there were more small independent bookstores like this in the world, because they're really a neat thing to have in a community. So thanks, Dorothy, for having us all here today.
Like the one ha 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 was sold in.
Like I said, nobody knows who I am, and that's how I like it. These gentlemen don't need an introduction. Obviously, you know Doug. He's the famous one of the two.
No.
Doug Preston has probably 25 more books than my granddad has, but we don't talk about that. So anyway, I'm just going to give it to my granddad.
Wicked smart.
And take it from there.
You're on a roll, son.
I know.
You're on a roll.
That's all I had. That's all I wrote.
Well, thank you, Shiloh. And thank you, Dorothy. And thank you, Doug. This is my 11th book, and I think it's my last book. I hate to tell you, but I've just run out of words. And I'd like to say a little bit about how this book came about. And I have to introduce some people in order to do that. Lou Bruno, where's Lou? Lou Bruno is the art director, and he's the one that took my manuscript, and he's supposed to turn it into a book. And he went to the printer, and he wouldn't let the presses run until he signed off on all the signatures. That took 4 days. And thank you, Lou, for that.
Night, Pawpaw.
And here's Susan Caldwell.
What's up, Hooley?
Susan, wave to the crowd, Susan. Susan is a graphic
What's up,
artist.
Richard?
She's the one that's in the computer. And she sent me an email. She said, "Forrest, draw me a stick figure of you fishing with a long line and a hook on the end of the line." I didn't know what she was going to do with that, but the next day she sent me the cover to my book. And I really like this cover.
Peace, Frenzy.
Thank you.
The audio is like garbly at first when the claps happen.
My last 5 books, right? Yeah. Six books. And it's good to see how the pros work, and those guys are really pros. And then we come to Jessica Jenkins. She's the editor of this book. Stand up.
Yeah, Lucky Digger. This was 2017. November
She's
2017.
the one that took my commas and rearranged them there.
Yeah, Gobbles. Okay, so like, for instance, he tells this story of how, you know, all he had to do was draw the stick figure with a fishing line, and then the rest he didn't do. I mean, sure, I guess that could have been how it went, but again, right, he gives us reason to question everything. So, but then why not tell us that, though?
Straightened out my verb tenses. She found the misspelled words and the typos.
Oh, Bill was just standing just to the right of Toby here.
With my book. But you did a good job, and thank you, Jessica. After all this was done, I really wasn't happy with the book. And I don't know why I wasn't happy, but to me there was no flow to it, and I didn't know what to do about it. I thought I was too close to it, and I didn't know how to fix it, but
I decided that maybe what I needed.
He was too close to it.
Outside input.
He didn't even do the cover, and he's too close to this, but he wasn't too close to the thrill of the chase.
End of my book. So I sent Doug Preston an email, and I said, Doug, would you write the foreword to my book? I didn't think he would. I mean, Doug's in the flourish of a very important career. I don't know whether you know it or not, but he's written 35 books, and he's had 22.
Yeah, Shiloh must be 20.
Times bestseller list.
7, 28 here.
To number 1 on that list. And some of his books have been printed, I think, in 30 languages. Is that correct, Doug? That's pretty impressive. But I didn't think Doug would write a foreword for me. And after a couple of days, I got an email from Doug, and he said, "Sure, I'll write your foreword." And he started asking me some questions, and I was thrilled that he would do that for me. And about 4 or 5 days passed, and I got about 1,800 words in my inbox from Doug, and it was the foreword, and I scanned it right quick, and then I read it again, and then I studied it, and I think
I scanned it right quick. Like, is he alluding to Terry Scant and look quickly down? Like, is that why he's wording it funky like that?
And he flattered me a little bit, but everybody likes flattery, right? And what Doug and I sent the forward to Jessica, and I said, Jessica, please don't tell me that you're going to edit Doug Preston. And she wrote me back and says, sure, I'll edit. She didn't know him, but she knew who he was, of course. She says, sure, I'll edit Doug, but there's nothing to edit. It's perfect. There's nothing to do. And I told myself, I said, yeah, you didn't have any trouble finding a bunch of malfunctions in my story.
Malfunctions. His word choice is phenomenal. What's your malfunction?
So now we've got the book. It's been written, it's been edited, it's been designed, it's been laid out, it's ready to go to the printer, but we don't have a title. How can you not have a title to a book? I wondered if we could publish the book without a title. Titles have always been a problem for me. So I sent a message out to my gang of 3. That's Lou and Susan and Jessica. I said, come up with something. I said, we're down to the deadline and we need something.
Why are titles a problem for him? Titles are a problem for him? Huh? Okay.
So for the next few hours, I mean, there were things flying around the computers. I mean, I can't tell you how many suggestions I got. It's like a snowstorm. And there were some bad suggestions. And there were some really bad suggestions. And then there were some terrible suggestions. And then, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, out of the blue, on my computer, on my
Forrest got Bill drunk.
laptop computer screen, it said, "Once upon a while." I liked that. I don't know whose idea that was. It certainly wasn't mine, but I liked it, and we discussed it a little bit.
Look at Shiloh's smile when he says that. Hold on, 8:51.
I liked that. I don't know whose idea that was. It certainly wasn't mine, but I liked it, and we discussed it a little bit, and everybody liked it, and I said, okay, the name of my book is Once Upon a While. I didn't have the slightest idea what that meant. But I think
like the cover because I like the idea of me catching a star. I don't know what that's all about, but I like that idea. And
I don't know what that's all about. The whole book cover is stars, and then he ends this thing with canopy of stars. Like, these feel like breadcrumbs left to be dissected after the fact. That's why we're doing this.
What Doug did to my book with his forward, he brought some cohesion to it. I had 39 stories, but
That's interesting. Hold on. Before I forget.
To me, it just didn't flow. And when Doug wrote the forward to it, instead of having 39 stories, all of a sudden I had 39 chapters. And that made a big difference for me. And with that, I think I'll turn the program over to Doug.
Well, thank you, Dorothy, and thanks to the bookstore, and especially thanks to Forrest. When I moved here to Santa Fe in 1986, I was a starving author. I hadn't published any books.
That number's important for
money.
Alan and I.
I had a
big time,
broken down old car.
Big time.
And not a couple of years later, Forrest befriended me, and I really wondered what the heck he saw in me
Glad we did this. I didn't notice that.
You go to lunch with John Ehrlichman and really interesting and unusual and eccentric and controversial people. And I found myself sometimes in these lunches wondering, what the heck am I doing here? So I'm very grateful to Forrest for asking me to write this introduction, because it's a story that I've been telling for 20 years, or I've been telling it gets bigger and better. But finally, I had a chance to write it, and it's been enshrined in the most wonderful book. I love this book. It's charming. It's delightful. It's beautifully written. The design of the book is splendid. I mean, so in every way, I'm very happy to be part of this book. But the thing that really I don't know. I've had 20 years with this treasure story, with Forrest. I think it was probably 20 years ago at least.
Could be.
Maybe longer.
Maybe that's it.
He showed me the treasure chest in his vault and opened it up, and I got to handle those nuggets, and I got to hold those cold, heavy gold coins in my hand, and what a thrill that was. And the story, Forrest told me, what his plans were with this treasure, how he was going to bury himself with I'm not supposed to use that word. I was going to hide himself with the treasure, and it was really enthralling. And at a certain point, I talk about this in my introduction, but I'll just go over it here. I went to school with a woman who became a very famous Hollywood producer named Linda Obst. She did Flashdance and Contact and.
I mean, he attended the same school, but they attended it at different times. Someone brought that to my attention, that it was like an 8-year gap. Not that that matters. Who knows? But
a bunch of movies, Sleepless in Seattle, a bunch of movies like that. And she used to call me up like once every 2 years and say, "Doug, do you have any ideas for a movie?" And the call would always come out of the blue, and I was always totally taken aback and couldn't think of anything. And I'm thinking to myself, a famous Hollywood producer has called me asking if I have any ideas for a movie, and I don't have any ideas. This is what a tragedy. And this happened like 2 or 3 times, and then finally I'd had lunch with Forrest one day, and we'd been talking about this whole thing, and I think that afterwards I'd seen that treasure chest again. I'd gotten to handle the gold she called me the next day and said, okay, there's one more call, Doug. I just got to ask you, do you have any ideas for a movie? And I said, well, damn, I just don't have any ideas. Why don't you give me a 5...
This guy puts out a book a year, if not more. There's, what is there, 20, 22, 23 Pendergast novel? Like, come on. He doesn't have an idea? Okay.
5-minute heads up. Wait. I do have an idea. I have an idea about a man, a wealthy man who actually takes it with him. He really does. She said, oh, I love that idea. Okay. You write a proposal and we'll buy it. So I thought, well, wait a minute, this is my idea. So I went to Forrest. This is an example of his amazing generosity. And I said, look, I've got this famous movie producer. She loves the story. And it's your story, Forrest. So, can we come to some kind of deal? Maybe, we'll all write the option, I'll write the proposal, we'll split the money, we'll share the credit. He said, nope. He said, you keep all the money, you take all the credit, and the only thing I want is to be invited to the Oscars.
You keep all the money, you take all the credit, yet the autobiography and the treasure, the family owns the copyright too. Huh?
So I wrote up the proposal, I sold it, they loved it, they started working on it. I actually then decided to write a novel about it that became the Codex. But unfortunately, as many things in Hollywood, a very common thing in Hollywood, the movie didn't get made, but someday they will make that film.
Oh, will they?
Anyway, so I lived with this
Anyways,
treasure chest. I must have seen it 20 times. And those few people out there who still think it's a hoax, I can absolutely assure them it's not. Not only do I know Forrest so well that I'm absolutely 100% certain that he would never do anything like that, but secondly, that treasure chest is not in his vault anymore. So where the heck is it? Well, it's out there somewhere, and I suppose one or two of you may be looking for it, right? How many people are looking for this? All right. Okay. Good. Well, anyway,
he likes to ask that question, though.
Forrest doesn't want me to say this. He asked me not to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Sorry. There are clues.
Okay, so Forrest, what I'm going to do is this. After we get through like 15 minutes of just dilly-dally, I'm going to say, okay, Forrest didn't want me to say this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. Yeah, do that. Come on.
In this book. He said, don't say that because it's going to make it sound like I'm trying to sell another book. But there are vital clues in this book. Just going to leave it at that.
You're closer to the edge than I am.
You're talking about this book? I'm talking about Once Upon a While, yes. I certainly am. And it is really, aside from the treasure, just as a book, this is a beautiful, delightful, charming, and wonderful book. And it's just full of stories that are of Forrest.
Yeah, I thought for sure I had that. I guess I don't.
Of Forrest talking about his wanderings as a boy, as a young man, the caves he explored, the lakes he fished, people he knew, and the wonderful things
if I missed it, man.
And each story is a gem.
Exactly. How would Doug know there are definitely clues? Doug is a part of this.
And then it's followed by...
I'm not frustrated at you. I'm just saying, it's just like there's no other logical or illogical explanation for how Doug speaks, for what Doug says, and when he says it, and how scripted they are when he does it with Fenn.
Handwritten commentary that is another gem on top of a gem. But as I was reading it, I picked out a few things that I really liked that I just thought I'd tell you. Some stories are really funny, like when...
I agree, JK.
When Wilson
a lot of it
Hurley,
could be red herring.
Who was one of the artists that Forrest represented and also a very good friend of Forrest, was in a car accident, and he couldn't pay it for a year. And so in the lawsuit that followed this car accident, the question came up as to what kind of income had this right or law. I mean, had this.
No, I know, Bill. I need to read that book.
For not being able to pay.
Again, I was against reading anything but The Thrill of the Chase in the poem.
Forrest was called upon.
I was wrong on that.
Witness. He was put on the witness stand to testify what Wilson Hurley's paintings were worth. And as the expert, and the defense attorney was quite a troglodyte, and he was not a very smart man because he had no idea who he was dealing with Forrest on the witness stand. And Forrest wrote, I just have to, if you don't mind me quoting it, said, I didn't like the defense attorney at first, or any sight after that. His villainous face and bulging eyes made him look like Peter Lorre. I didn't know the jerk, but he was someone I very much enjoyed not caring for. I love that phrase. I very much enjoyed not caring for.
Wait, there's stories about him not liking lawyers in Once Upon a While?
We all have had that emotion, haven't we? So Forrest was put on the witness stand.
That is all over, ha ha ha.
He writes in the book, quote, I just sat there as the lawyer's eyes captured me like a 40-pound turkey staring at a June bug.
I mean, they even do an illustration for it. Let's go back. Hold on.
After that, his villainous face and bulging eyes made him look like Peter Lorre. I didn't know the jerk, but he was someone I very much enjoyed not caring for. I love that phrase. I very much enjoyed not caring for. We all have had that emotion, haven't we? So Forrest was put on the witness stand, and he writes in the book, quote, I just sat there as the lawyer's eyes captured me like a 40-pound turkey staring at a June bug. Love that. Anyone who's raised turkeys or fowl know how much they love those June bugs. So the attorney started asking Forrest these questions and demanding, yes or no, answer yes or no. And finally Forrest turned to the judge and said, Judge, I swore to tell the truth and the whole truth. If the defense attorney won't allow me to do that, then I must respectfully withdraw my oath. Consternation in the courtroom. This defense attorney was absolutely flummoxed. So there was a little conference in the judge's chambers. Forrest was this far from being in contempt of court, but no, he had stepped up to the line but not crossed it. And the judge, after listening to both sides, said to the defense attorney, let the man answer the questions the way he wants to answer them and stop badgering him. So that's just one of the stories in the book. There are a couple of other things I just want to mention here that I love in this book. All right, the hat. Okay. Now, for many years, I've been visiting Forrest in his house, and when you come into his house, you see the most disgusting looking thing sitting on a side table. It's so old and dirty and greasy that you're sure that it's going to give you some kind of disease. And when you look more closely, you realize it's a hat. So in this book, he tells a story of this hat. I'd never heard this story. But Forrest has all these wonderful objects in his house, and each one has a story. But this story is great. It belonged to a Basque shepherd here in New Mexico who brought Forrest an arrowhead to sell him. And so Forrest said the arrowhead was worth $5, but he paid $15 for it. And but he was very
Forrest likes to overpay for things.
This guy's hat, and Forrest writes, it was homemade from very thick, hand-tanned hide, probably buffalo. It had a bullet hole in it that the shepherd said had happened one, quote, moonlit night when Annabelle's husband showed up unexpectedly. The hat, the shepherd said, was so sturdy that it'd break a fall. So Forrest, here's an example of Forrest's negotiating abilities too. He said, how much do you want for this worthless old beat-up hat? No, sir, with its history of saving my life, $1 million wouldn't buy that thing. I'll give you $300. My God, sir, you sure bought a great hat. So now you know. So that
I like that, Danny.
What that hat was doing in his front hall, and that that there was a story behind it. And then finally, one other thing, and it's not just funny. Forrest is not only amusing and charming and everything else, but sometimes his writing reaches a very profound level of something that as a writer I admire greatly.
A profound level of something.
This one thing that he wrote about a friend of his named a war hero named George Dabbich, who also became a guide and an outfitter and passed away. And Forrest wrote this about him. George died at age 91, and his passage went largely unnoticed, save for a scant few guys like me and some relatives. But the coyotes and the sagebrush know he's gone, and so do the tall pines, under which he sat so many times and drank coffee from a tin cup. The red embers of his campfires will miss him badly, but not as much as me. Now, is that a beautiful piece of writing? So, anyway, that's pretty much what I have to say. It's been such a pleasure writing this introduction for the book, and an even greater privilege and pleasure knowing Forrest all these years. And I mean,
Nick, I've already been over this.
When most people, when they get to be 80
Some
years
point
old,
earlier in the
sit by
stream, you can rewind.
with a mug of hot tea and read a book.
I might get back into it if Alan joins, but
he has got the whole country
We'll see.
upside down looking for this treasure. So, congratulations.
But we don't believe Rod Addicts did. We got the Rod Addicts name before that was released, by the
I
way.
wouldn't try it on. I'm afraid my hair would fall out. Or someone might shoot at me.
Again.
Annabelle might mistake me for. All right, so.
You want to pick the questions? Okay.
I would like to, yeah.
Go ahead, sir. I think you're first. There's a microphone passed around, folks. If you guys can wait till the mic gets there, that'd be helpful.
In the poem, you describe the blaze, and you have.
It's not about who had it first. My point is, Alan and I had spoke to Diane Dalby a week prior and got the same exact name, and we know the same investigation. Like, we knew the same materials, except for, I didn't know that book, so I had to read the book Plague of Justice. But talking to Diane. There's a Judy Van Cleve in the book. There's other names involved, and the Terrell fellow whose dad was murdered by Rod Addicts. What he went off of was, I believe, an anonymous prison source and a magical 60 pages that appeared at his own bookkeeping company, again anonymously. But I liked Darren. I even said I really liked him, so I would love to have him on. We could go over it. Plus, there's just logical things like, again, the people he worked with. He would have to be, having people meet him in jail while he's a convicted felon for murder, and then they have to somehow come up with printing costs for 20,000 books that have foil book covering on it. Now, what they say in this story is that they only got a down payment. Okay, that doesn't mean it's anybody, but we're still trying. I'm trying to look into that court case, get the specifics of it. But I've looked plenty into Rod Addicts. In my opinion, he didn't write that book. That doesn't mean D.B. Cooper did or Forrest Fenn did. Rod Addicts didn't. There's intricate details in that book that are pertinent and aren't coincidental, and Rod Addicts couldn't have known it from prison. So.
Is the blaze
What's
a
up,
living
Boo?
thing, or is it some kind of an event on a living thing?
Before, guys, maybe before we start asking some questions about the treasure, since it is a book launch, because that's why we're all here. Anybody have any questions about the book or the process or the stories or the writing?
Salad.
There's some potatoes too.
So the purpose in writing the book,
Oh my god, I have to
was
like
it
do
that
stuff?
you wanted to share more clues with the folks that are searching, or was there some background purpose related to the chase in writing the book? Or did you feel like you needed to put more clues out there?
You know, this is my third memoir, and I truly believe that I could write another 50. But I'm sure that idiosyncrasy of my nature is not stuck on me. Everybody in this crowd could do the same thing. When you, I remember years ago, my daughters are here tonight. They're in their mid-50s, but
No.
must have been about
late 30s.
It must have been 30 years ago we were talking, and I found out that they didn't know who Clark Gable was.
We have an answer for the Clark Gable thing too, from Ha Ha Ha.
And I was appalled that because when I was a kid, Clark Gable was the biggest thing in Hollywood. I mean, Gone with the Wind and on the movies. So I told myself, I don't like this. And so I grabbed the yellow pad and I started writing my first memoir. Actually, I started writing an autobiography because I wanted my kids to know who I was and who my parents were and who my grandparents were.
I'm gonna eat this now, though.
I'd never written before, really. So I grabbed a yellow pad and a pencil and I started talking about my grandmother, telling me when she was a little kid, the cow was in the Comanches in Fort Worth running through her barnyard trying to catch chickens. And I talked about my parents making their own soap and my dad made charcoal. And
Lucky, I agree, and we have an answer for that when,
on Friday, if I could
we go, nothing's there, okay, no big deal, we'll talk about it, but we believe we have an answer for that.
Murder larks with my BB gun, then we could have meat on Friday.
Direct from Ha Ha Ha.
On Sunday, we killed a chicken, but I wanted my kids and my grandkids. I have some grandkids here. There's Piper, and I wanted them to know something about my family, and I hope that they will write their memoirs. And I suggested everybody in here write your memoir. The Library of Congress loves those things. I sent mine to them on Microsoft Word, and I got a nice letter back from the Librarian of Congress. And he said, this memoir may not be important today or tomorrow, but he said 500 years from now, 1,000 years from now. And I encourage all of you.
I highly doubt that guy told him that.
First of all, you owe it to your kids and your grandkids. But secondly, it's a fun thing to do. I very much enjoyed it. And every time I would tell a story, I would remember another one. And and then finally I got a computer. I really didn't want to come into the 19th century, but I finally bought a computer and I transcribed everything on my yellow pad in that computer. And when I finished my autobiography, I said in my book there were 28,000 words. Actually, there's 32,000 words in that autobiography, and nobody has seen that autobiography. My kids are learning tonight that I wrote that. But when I'm long gone, I hope somebody will. And then the treasure chest.
Q, we're going to our spot within the next 10 days.
There's a copy of it in my treasure chest because I wanted. Who says we can't influence the future? I don't subscribe to a lot of those things, and so. I had that treasure chest, and I made a number of bells and jars, and in these jars I would put my autobiography in there. But you know, those things get wet; they're not waterproof, and so I would put my autobiography in a little olive jar that had a tin lid, and I dipped the tin lid in hot wax so that to make it waterproof. I mean, I tried to think of everything, and I had a lot of fun doing that while my wife was watching Dancing with the Stars. But I'm
Nick, I don't know the value of these books because I have little birdies telling me we're probably going to upload a PDF version of the book. Who owns the copyright? Who doesn't? It's all BS, right?
Sorry, I don't want to ramble on.
Yeah.
Hello, Forrest.
Yo, Packer Jack, delete your shit.
Stories, and you've encouraged us to hike in Colorado and everything, so I just want to thank you for that. But we want to know, what is your favorite story, whether it be from this book or any of your books? What's your favorite story that you've told?
What's your favorite book from, or your favorite story?
I mean, they
from
can
this
try,
book
Nick,
or
but I
another
know
one?
things they don't know.
My books?
That's the thing. We've been knee deep in this nonsense.
I wish you had not asked me that. But, I don't know. I've been accused of being a storyteller, and I have a good friend by the name of Max Evans. He lives in Albuquerque. He's 93 years old, I think now. He's written about 50 books, and he told me one time that a nonfiction writer doesn't have to be correct but 85% of the time. And I said that in my Thrill of the Chase book, and everybody since that time is quoting.
Well, Q, we believe that you need a Forrest Fenn spin on ha ha ha. So, a lot of DB Cooper folk probably had it and go, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I can understand that. So, could some Fenn people get their hand? They have, but no one's gotten what Alan and I have gotten. So we're either right or wrong. I mean, we'll find out. It's about the thrill of the chase, right?
Me instead of quoting Max Evans, but I said when I went into Borders to buy a book it was raining. People are looking up in the Farmer's Almanac 15 years ago to see if it was raining on that date. But there's a lot to be said, and Doug has written some nonfiction books. As a matter of fact, his best book, I think, is Cities of Gold. But you say some innocent things, like it was raining when I walked outside. I don't remember where it was raining or not, but it kind of adds to the story. And I think, all right, am I the only one that does that, Doug?
Yeah, I mean, Lucky, I think Fenn is, how can he not be at least a little bit tired of telling the same stories over and over again, right?
I'm 100% accurate in my books.
Plus he's older.
85%.
Of course, he writes fiction.
Still enjoys it and, smiles. I don't know.
Hi, Forrest. Just curious, who was your greatest inspiration in writing this book and your past books in terms of authors that emulate?
Who was your greatest inspiration in writing this book in terms of authors?
Writing this book?
Or any of your other books?
Nick, I'm not going to make it a debate, but there have been people in the Fenn community who've had ha 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 for close to or a decade-ish. I'd be curious to know when you guys got your hands on the book for the first time, because that's been up for debate too.
I tell you what, I hate to tell this story, but I think my greatest inspiration was Hemingway and Fitzgerald, because I
don't think I'm making any claim that we know more than you guys. I'm just saying you guys are pretty dismissive of it, which is fair. That's all. Plenty of us have had our hands on this for years. But without even being Fenn people. Shit, I was a D.B. Cooper person before I was ever a Fenn person.
Their books. and I started reading them, and I got about a third of the way through them, and I threw them in the trash, and I set in a book that landed right on top of a Time magazine. I thought that was a play on words, but J.D. Salinger died about that time. He wrote Catcher in the Rye, and I'd never read that thing, but they made a big deal out of that book, and so I said I didn't like these famous writers, but I went to Borders.
Hey, I asked her to marry me on the 50th anniversary, Q. So there you go.
I said, my golly, if this is a good book, I said, I can do that. And because I enjoyed reading the book, but I didn't think it was a great book. So to answer your question, I think Hemingway is my greatest inspiration. But let me throw something else out while we're talking about this. Before I started writing The Thrill of the Chase, I went to Doug Preston.
Thanks, Packer.
We looked at the treasure chest, and I said, Doug, I want you to write The Thrill of the Chase. I said, because I had what everybody thought was terminal cancer. They gave me 20% chance to live 3 years, and besides that, I was not a writer, and Doug was a great writer, and I can't write this book because I don't know how it's going to end. I mean, I may not be here. And out of that conversation, Doug mentioned earlier, came the Codex. And if you haven't read the Codex, you need to read that. And Doug took my idea and made a really good book out of it, and he gave me credit for it in the book, and I thank you for that. But Santa Fe is full of writers, good writers. You know, I can name 20, including Kirk Ellis, who wrote John Adams for the Ken Burns thing, and there's some screenwriters here, and it's fun to mix with these guys, and because when I'm around these guys like Doug Preston and these other guys, you know, I feel like a Volkswagen bug at a Mercedes convention, but I learned so much, and I have to thank you 1,000 times.
Well, Forrest, I feel the same way.
How about somebody in the back?
Can you hear me in the back?
I guess I can't argue.
Hello?
No,
Who's so fucking trying?
The book is just
What's that from?
absolutely beautiful. One thing that caught my eye was the belt buckle on the stickman, and I wondered if you could tell the story behind your belt buckle.
I've got to blame Susan Caldwell for that. I send her stick figures, and she puts a belt buckle on them. But I'll show you my belt buckle. In the thrill of the chase, she pictured this in the frontispiece, if I'm not correct. But this belt buckle's for sale. The first $50,000 offered can buy
it. Give you what for shopping at Borders?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Did Dorothy give you what for shopping at Borders?
I was about to dive off into the crowd there. Yeah.
What in the holy hell was that? Was that a real voice? Holy shit.
Well, that's, I think, a testament to what happens when you have a good crowd behind a small independent bookstore, really.
What was the question?
Well, he asked about Borders and whether or not Dorothy beat you up for shopping there in the first place.
We need to support our independent bookstores, and stores like Borders, they come and go, but Dorothy's here forever, and they need our support. But let me say one other thing here. If anybody has an itch that they can't scratch, you can ask Shiloh a question.
Well, that's what Capo did. And then she's like, or he's like, do you notice I didn't talk about that?
Mr. Fenn, your new book, I have not yet to read it, but I've looked at the cover, and it says, Once Upon a While. And typically when you fish and you catch a fish, there's a name to it. Is there a name to this star?
Yes, if you've named the star that you've caught on the cover. Have you named the star that you've caught on the cover?
Well, I'm going to make Susan do that.
He just likes to blame someone else.
I don't know, but I would accept some suggestions from you.
My name's Darcy. I come from Roblesville, British Columbia. And I share the same birthday as you, August 22nd. You're the first person, or the second person I met that shared the same birthday with me. But when I was learning about poetry, it says the first rule of poetry is to be inspired. And from the sounds of it, you
That's awful.
A long time ago. And I think your poem's so elegantly written that you could solve it as both a fly fisherman and a fighter pilot. Would you agree with that statement? That your poem could be solved as a fighter pilot or
Your poem could be solved as a fighter pilot or a fly fisherman.
Frequency. Can you tell me what it
Yeah, do you think that your poem can be solved using a perspective of a fighter pilot and a fly fisherman?
Where do these guys come up with this? If you read my book and if you read my poem, and follow the clues in my poem, they can take you to the treasure chest.
My poem.
You have a fishing invitation.
What?
You have a fishing invitation.
Okokoks Falls, a Cocoa, as in brown, lots, falls in Revelstoke, British Columbia, home of the brown.
He thinks he's got it.
What?
He thinks he's found it.
Well,
Toby, you got a question?
Oh, Indy's live. That's cool.
Most of you guys know Toby. He's usually the man behind the camera, but he's actually way smarter than that.
But not as pretty.
No, sorry.
Forrest, of the nearly 200 scrapbooks that you've written, how did you decide on the ones that you chose to put in the book?
Well, I went through them, and I don't know, some of them I liked better than others. Some of them I didn't like the way they were written. Some of them I didn't like the subject. And I originally had 40 stories. I wanted 40 stories. And Jessica and I were going through them, and I had a story that I really didn't like. It was a story, a scrapbook that I wrote on Dow's blog, and I talked about how I wrote my style in writing. And I looked at that and I said, I don't want to say those things. And so it was too late to get another story. So instead of having 40 stories in the book, we have 39, and that's the story. Does that answer your question, Toby?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. But like I said, when I look back and hearken back to things that happened to me when I was a kid, and things have changed so much. And I remember one time I had a good friend, Bo Simmons. His father bought a brand new pickup truck, and Bo Simmons just got a driver's license, and we were out on one Saturday night, and I was in the back of this pickup truck with a couple of the guys, and we were going 50 miles an hour down Main Street. There was not anybody awake for 20 miles, and in the back of this pickup truck was a garbage can full of garbage, and went down Main Street, and somebody picked that garbage can up and threw it out, and the garbage splattered all over the city hall and up and down the street, and for the next week or 2 weeks it made headlines in the Temple Daily Telegram paper, and we felt so bad. We finally confessed, and we thought we were going to get the electric chair for doing that. And you compare that with what we see going on today. Drugs meant aspirin, and the really tough kids in high school were smoking cigarettes and making their own cigarettes and out of cedar bark, most of them. It smelled terrible, but I could smell it. And today we've got soccer moms doing everything. Sports was a very big deal to me when I was in junior high school and high school. And I don't ever remember my parents taking me to a practice or coming to one of my games. And it didn't bother me.
It's all good. He was probably just misinterpreting my tone.
My parents did.
No big deal.
But things have changed so
Like I said, it's not a competition.
And that's why I encourage all of you to write your life.
If you're into DB Cooper and you're into Forrest Fenn, you're a Cooperite and a Fennite. How about that?
Deserve it.
She ties lock cigarettes. That's right, Forrest. I loved my Forrest Gump solve. Bobby, you can listen to any if you want. Do whatever you want.
Thank you very much for what you do. I'm looking forward to reading this new book. Thank you. I've been on the trails and traveled and seen all kinds of things because of you. I've been in Yellowstone at Easter time and seen the bright sunshine and snow on the ground. Loved it. And I also ended up over Cody. And you're a good man, and I know you've given a lot of things to people. You don't talk about it, but I saw that cabin that you put there with your wife dedicated that to the Wild Cody Museum. And I also know, or I think I know, that you attend the Black Bow Tie Ball there. And so I was curious on how you're doing and when you were able to get up there this year.
He's traveled a lot up in Yellowstone.
Yeah, some of those questions, the audio is awful.
The Cody Museum. Curious how often you make it up and how you're doing and what you think about that situation.
Well,
Alan K. Simpson, Senator Simpson from Wyoming, was an old friend of mine, and I could tell you some wonderful stories about when he was chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the Senate. But he was chairman of the board of the museum at Cody, and it's a wonderful museum, 350,000 square feet under roof. And he called me on the phone one day and asked me if I'd go on the board. And I hate meetings. And I said, let me think about it. And I called a guy that I knew who had been director of the museum for about 20 years. And I said, well, what do those guys want from me? And he said, well, one thing, they want a little bit of money, but he said, let me tell you who's on the board. And he started naming names, and I was really impressed. Dick Cheney was on the board, the vice president of the United States, and the doctor that invented the stent, he was on the board, and William Self, who was in 3 movies with John Wayne. He owns Batman. He owns MASH.
Pieces of shit for breakfast?
This is the quality of people that were on that board. And I said, sure, I'll go on that board. And,
what up, Silver Fox?
I went to it.
Long time no see.
In Cody, I sat on the couch with Jimmy Doolittle for 30 minutes and talked to him. How can you beat a deal like that? I mean, my granddaughter Piper doesn't know who Jimmy Doolittle was.
How many of the hunters have been to the museum in Cody, the Buffalo Bill Cody? Isn't that a cool place? And you should see the basement.
I've always said that I'm the
yeah, Shiloh does abbreviate.
People would come in my gallery, and I wanted to talk to them. I tried to take them to lunch because I wanted to know what they knew and what I could learn from them, and maybe something would rub off on me. And it was a wonderful thing, and it started me on an excursion around the world. One time I went to see Mrs. Erwin Rommel in Germany. Her father was Field Marshal Rommel, who tried to kill Hitler, and I knocked on the door, and her son came to the door, and his name was Manfred, and he spoke some English, and I was invited in, and they served coffee and tea, and that's the kind of thing I really like, and particularly I told the story in Too Far to Walk about going to see Mrs. MacArthur. She lived in the Waldorf Towers in New York, next to the Waldorf Astoria, and I pulled up, I got out of a taxi, and the doorman came up, and I said, I would like to speak to Mrs. MacArthur. And he says, the madam rarely accepts gentlemen callers. And I said, I just want to talk to her on the phone. And he got her on the phone, and she invited me up, and we talked for a while. And I remember she was a big Mets fan. She liked the base. And I was sitting in a chair right here, and she was sitting there. And on my left here, the floor, through the door and all the way over to the wall, the rug was threadbare. I could see.
What is he talking about? I've gotten so lost in this story.
Through the rug in spaces, and it was so out of place. And Mrs. MacArthur saw me looking at that, and she looked at me and said, "The gentleman, the general paste." So I get a lot. I like to meet people who have done something extraordinary. Whether they're good or bad, I would like to meet Genghis Khan. I feel like I already know Genghis Khan.
When he says, I feel like I already know Genghis Khan, and he looks at Doug Preston, keep in mind, Doug Preston writes about Genghis Khan and how he would be entombed with his treasure in the Codex.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, Mr. Fenn, I have a sore throat, so it might be hard to hear me. But thank you for all the stories and the life that you've shared with us. It's been very meaningful for me, and I'm sure many others. My question is, you have said in the past, many searchers are in tight focus with a word that is key. My question is that word in the poem?
What did she say, son?
Wants to know who your stylist is.
Did she really say that?
No, nobody has said that to me since I was 2. And that was 85 years ago. Thank you, madam.
Do you care to answer any treasure questions, or save that for another time?
Well, Cecilia, thanks trying to shut us down.
This gentleman in the blue out here has actually had his hand up, I see, like 8 times. I know, and I've given you the look.
Forrest, whenever I travel,
Just gonna skip that question, aren't we?
I'll pick up a rock.
And I'll take a view and look around.
If that was the next question, I would have just asked the same question. Answer her question.
And I've got several rocks from places where I've traveled. And when I pass away, I'm going to give those to my daughter. And it's going to be her job to return those rocks.
That's cool, but like, I'd rather know the answer to her question.
Stood there just in awe and looked in nature. And you can recall that this is just awesome.
Well, you know, I could talk about that for a long time, but
this was in 2017, Bo.
I was in the Air Force. I was in a fire squadron in Bitburg, Germany, and we had a gunnery school down in Libya, outside of Tripoli. And on the weekends, I'd get in an old Army Jeep and go out in the desert where those tank battles were fought in World War II. Field Marshal Rommel against Patton and Montgomery from England. And I was interested in all that. There's burned out tanks there, and there's stuff laying around. There's a skeleton once in a while. And I looked over there and I saw a mortar about this big around. I wasn't going to touch it because it was live, but I walked over to it to see if it had any writing on it. And laying under this mortar was an arrow point, a 2,000-year-old arrow point. And a strange feeling came over me because here I am looking at wars, laying on top of wars, laying on top of wars. And I was shocked by that, and I never put that situation in that perspective before. But I've collected all kinds of things. I mean, when I was laying in the jungle in Vietnam, after I'd been shot down,
I don't care, Bobby. Do what you want.
Dropping bombs all around me, trying to kill me, I thought, and we had three different kinds of bombs. We had an instant fuse bomb. We had a bomb that exploded in 0.025 seconds after it hit the ground. 0.025 seconds is not a very long time.
Yeah, Forrest launches into a story that has nothing to do with the question. I mean, that's, in my opinion, that's CIA interview tactics.
Down 25 feet and starts up before it blows in at 25 thousandths of a second.
It's amazing.
It is. So when you drop an instant fuse bomb, when it gets close to the ground, the air is so thick, the air can't get out of its way because the bomb is traveling so fast. So the bomb thinks that the compressed air is the ground, and it blows about 3 or 4 feet above the ground. And the shrapnel just goes 15,000 feet in the air. And the delayed fuse bombs go down 25 or 30 feet, and they blow everything out. 750-pound bomb full of tritonol is a terrible weapon. And this happened to me, and when I first saw the B-52 dropping bombs, each B-50, there were a flight of 3, and each one carried 105 750-pound bombs. And they release them, click, 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 click. 315 bombs, click, 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 and I saw the light, and I said, they're dropping flares, the rescue people are coming to get me. It was those bombs exploding. And in a minute, in a few seconds, I don't know how far away this was, a half a mile. But
I'm just listening, K-Pro, sorry. Weird things in this. I found a few fun things, but not related to anything except for DB Cooper.
I'm laying there beside an old rotted log, and 3 or 4 minutes later, things start falling on me. The bomb had blown the dirt and the rock so high that it took them 5 minutes to come back down, and they're landing all around me. I could hear them and one landed on my knee. I talked in a book. I kept that thing, to answer your question, sir. I loved, that's a memento from my Vietnam days, and it's something that when I'm gone, somebody will take it to the landfill, and that's okay. But to me, it means something to me. And I could tell you another 100 instances where I've saved things like that.
I'll do my best to make this question concise. But looking at these memoirs and even just putting the treasure aside for a second, they're really fascinating when you compare them to other literature. So what you basically have done is taken memoirs, you have original art in your book, you have poetry in your book, and then weaved all of this together to basically create this puzzle which has inspired hundreds of thousands of individuals to change their behavior and go out into the wilderness and to discover the wilderness. And so I guess my question is, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your creative process and specifically the discipline and the patience to bring this all together in a way that it doesn't totally reveal things, but it provides enough information to motivate people and to keep them moving.
Sir, I can hear your voice, but I don't understand your words. What did he say, sir?
Look, he wants to know about your creative process, and he says you've weaved together so many different aspects, like original art and stick figures, original art and poems and stories, and you've been able to connect all the dots without giving too much away, because in the end it comes back to the treasure, and he wonders about your creative process and what that's like and how you've been able to do such a good job.
Go past the buck, right, or something. I don't know.
The wolves at bay. So
well, you know, sir, you describe a person that I really don't know. But I don't have a plan. When I had my business, I never had a budget. Making plans.
Well, Packer Jack, if that's the case, he'll know who to contact.
And I don't know that I have any creative process. When I start writing, I just write down what I'm thinking. I mean,
we just watched the interview from 2013 where you gotta if you're gonna do mystery, you gotta know the ending. I just write. I don't plan.
And people have told me that when they read my book, they think I'm talking to them. And Eric Sloan told me that. And I said in my book about Eric Sloan that it wasn't a book at all. It was a conversation with an old friend. And that's where what you describe as creative process. I say that's just my normal operation. I'm not trying to do those things. But I like poetry, and I never considered myself a poet, but my books are full of poetry, and they tell me a lot, and particularly in my book, the thrill of the chase. I quoted some poetry that I thought the words are very profound to me. Did that answer your question, sir?
How are you doing for time? Do you want to do one more question? How are you doing?
It's 6:50. Do you want to stick around a little bit longer, a few more minutes, or?
I'm not the boss here. Cecilia, you decide.
We've got one guy who's been dying up there, and then we'll call it a day. And if you can all just stay in your seats and let Mr. Fenn and the guys go to the back there. He'll be at the table over there. You can just line up over here in single file to come through. Thank you.
Okay, first, in one of your stories, you mentioned that there is no such thing as a self-made man. And I think we can all say thank you for building everybody up like you do, because you do such an amazing job. And my question is, how do you do it all the time?
So you say that there's no such thing as a self-made man, and he thinks that in your books you do a great job of building people up all the time. He wants to thank you, and he's curious how you're able to do that.
I don't know what self-made man really means in that context, but my answer to the question is no, I don't think there are any. None of us on this planet knows what's going on except what we read or what somebody tells us. And what we read quite often is very inaccurate. And so I started writing a story. It was called Everybody Needs an Intersection. And I was in China. I was going to see the warriors at Xi'an. And you land into the airport of Xi'an, and then you get in a car and you drive for 2 hours across the countryside to where the warriors are. and I'm in the front seat with this driver, this Chinese driver, and he spoke English, and there's rice paddies everywhere, and at every intersection, like every section of land, there's an intersection, a paved road, and standing in the middle of every intersection is 4 or 5 guys, Chinese men standing there, mile after mile after mile, and I said, what's going on with those? What's going on? He said, he said they're gossiping. He said they're discussing the price of rice and anything else that they need to say. And I told him I filed that, and then I came home and I was writing a book about Joseph Sharp, and I went to the little town of Crow Agency, Montana, and walking down the street to this little cafe, and the sign in the window says, "We open for breakfast at 4 o'clock." And I said to the waitress, I said, "You don't open the breakfast at 4 o'clock. Nobody does that. And it's 3 hours before daylight." He said, "Oh yeah, we do it." I said, "Well, I'm going to be here in the morning at 4 o'clock, and I'm going to see." I got there at 4 o'clock the next morning, and I couldn't get a seat. The interesting part of this story is I went back for lunch, and those guys were still sitting there. So this was their intersection. They were the radios up there don't talk about anything but the price of wheat, and it was so interesting to me, and I think I could write a story about that. And the punchline is everybody really does need an intersection, don't they? Am I way out on that?
No, that's good.
So thank you guys. Another huge round of applause. Thank you.
All right, well that's good to go. That's good to go. Well, we did two. I'm not gonna do the other one. I can't do confirmation bias right now. Ashley and I still have to do. We're gonna do our Oak Island show. I don't think we even did one last week, but we're gonna catch up. And interesting shit there. I don't know when that comes out. That'll be tonight or tomorrow or something like that. Otherwise, I think this is a good spot to cut it off. Gosh, 2 hours, 47 minutes. That seems right. I still haven't gotten to eat my salad yet, so I'm going to go do that. You all have fun. Try to stay drama-free. Peace out.